What happens when the mother of a god refuses to die quietly? And the man trying to erase her would rather burn history than share it. This is in mythology. This is Macedonia in the year 319 BCE. And Alexander the Great is dead. And he leaves a power vacuum that he left behind. And two forces are rising. On the one hand, you have Olympias, and she's the high priestess of Dionysus. And she's the widow of a king, Alexander's father, Philip II. And she's the mother of a god. And something even more terrifying. On the other hand, you have Cassander. And he's the son of the regent of Macedonia, the man that Alexander the Great left behind while Alexander was on campaign, conquering Persia and invading India. And Cassander, he was a cold-blooded strategist and an architect of erasure. Now, Olympias believes that her bloodline is sacred. Cassander believes that her myth is a threat. And their war will decide the soul of an empire. So let me take you back in time here a bit. And in 323 BCE in Babylon, Alexander the Great dies, and he leaves no adult heir, no plan, just leaves a crown and chaos. His only son is Alexander IV, but he is still in the womb. And the one left standing with divine authority is his mother, Olympias. But Olympias isn't just mourning her son. She's returning from the shadows, and not to grieve, but to rule. Let me give you a little backstory on who Olympias is to add some context to the story. So Olympias was raised in a place called Epirus, which is north of Macedonia, probably modern-day Albania. And Olympias was likely initiated into Dionysian or Orphic mystery rites. This is a spiritual tradition built not on doctrines or dogma, but on experience. Dionysus wasn't just a party god. He was a god of festival, fertility, wine, but also a god of madness and death, destruction and rebirth. His rites dissolve the boundaries between man and God, order and chaos, life and the afterlife. For those of you into Eastern traditions and Eastern religions, Dionysus is very similar to the deity or the god Shiva in Hinduism. And of course, there's a sacrament in this religion, it's wine. But it wasn't just alcohol. Some sources say, and the jury's still out on this, but it could have been most likely spiked with ergot. And ergot is a natural psychedelic fungus. It's the same substance linked to visions, delirium, and transcendence. Some believe that this is like the precursor to something like lysergic acid or LSD. So to drink was to die, to be reborn, and to become something else. Dionysus was a god of mask, and Olympias wore one well. To her enemies, she wasn't the queen. She was a sorceress. She was weaponized myth. And she was a mask the gods wore when they wanted to kill kings. Now, let's go back to Macedonia. So, in Macedonia, there was the regent, the guy that Alexander left behind to rule while he was on the campaign. Again, this man named Antipater. But the old regent, Antipater, dies. And he skips over this political office, if you will. He skips over his son, Cassander. And he names Polyperchon, another old general that served with Alexander, as the successor. And Olympias, she sees an opportunity and seizes the moment. So she allies with this old general named Polyperchon, not because she trusts him, but because she can use him. So Olympias becomes the guardian of her grandson, Alexander IV, and issues decrees in his name, and uses the memory of Alexander as a rallying cry, possibly even recreate some Dionysian rituals in public just to stir awe and fear. The people didn't see her as just royalty. They saw a living link to the gods, not a queen, a revenant. Now, let's talk about Cassander. This is the typical cosmic fight between order versus apocalypse. Cassander was raised in the same court as Alexander. They learned how to soldier together, how to read and write together. They learned Greco-Roman wrestling together. They were possibly tutored by Aristotle together. But Cassander, he was never the chosen one. He wasn't brilliant, but he was cunning. And he wasn't worshipped like Alexander, but he watched and he waited. He saw Olympias not as a priestess, but as a threat to order, a threat to reason and to stability. Cassander had a cold mind because Cassander didn't believe in gods. He believed in leverage. So when his father Antipater dies, Cassander's passed over, he launches a quiet civil war. He knows he can't beat Olympias in myth, so he uses fear. So he spreads rumors that she's unstable and that she killed her enemies and Dionysian blood rites or rituals. And he would say things like she dances with the dead or that she anoints herself in blood. So to the nobles, this is more than gossip. It's a warning. Follow her and you risk chaos, madness, tyranny, all of this wrapped in ritual. But Cassander promises the opposite. He promises stability, control, the end of this divine drama. Now, at some point, Olympia starts to purge the Macedonian court. She starts eliminating threats or potential successors to the throne that might challenge Alexander IV's claim. So again, she has people murdered. She purges the court. Matter of fact, she even kills Philip of Aridaeus, which was one of her late husband's sons from another woman, and his sister as well, in a brutal way. Has him stripped naked, has the sister commit suicide. And don't get it wrong, Olympias is vicious and ruthless and strategic. And Cassander sees the opportunity, rallies the nobles, and summons up an army, and she's going to march to ultimately stop Olympias. So Olympias, she retreats to a city called Pydna or Pydna. This is a city on the Aegean coast. And Cassander, he doesn't attack. He lays a siege. He surrounds her and he waits. And the siege drags through the winter. There's no food, no aid, no miracle. Even Olympia's ally, the old general Polyperchon, he can't raise enough men to break the blockade. So she once wore the mask of gods, now faces death as a prisoner. But she's not going to do it in battle. She's going to do it in hunger and in silence. This wasn't a war. This was a ritual suffocation, if you will, a slow execution of something considered sacred at the time. Now, right at the brink of the siege, Olympias is not surrendering. She's not capitulating. So Cassander offers her safety, which is a lie. And Olympias, she surrenders maybe to save her grandson, Alexander IV, because she believes there's still some honor amongst kings in the fact that she's Alexander the Great's mother. But there isn't. And he hands her over to the families of those that she executed, like Eurydice and Philip III. But some sources say that they refused to kill her, that they were too afraid. Matter of fact, they were too afraid not just to touch her, but to even look at her. That's the amount of fear that she invoked in people. And other sources say that Cassander, since she couldn't get the families of her victims to kill her, said that he just turned her over to the mob and that they stoned her to death. She died like a prophet, not slain in battle, but broken by the very people she tried to lead. And ultimately, it was by betrayal and by fear. So by 311 BCE, Cassander's now ruling Macedonia. And his next order of business is to execute Roxana, which is Alexander the Great's Bactrian wife, and the child king, Alexander IV. And he does this quietly and in secret. And to claim legitimacy to the throne, he marries Alexander's half sister. And in 305 BCE, he crowns himself the king of Macedon. And now the Argead bloodline is gone. It's not even lost, it's erased. This is Alexander the Great's bloodline. Now, Olympias wasn't a saint. She was truly terrifying and visionary and ruthless. She was a priestess in flame. And Cassander, believe it or not, wasn't a monster. He was just an order incarnate, if you will. The death of myth in favor of structure. And when they clashed, something ancient died. Not just a bloodline, but the belief that gods could still walk on the earth. So I hope you enjoyed the series in the Diadochi Wars. And like always, guys, remember to lift more, eat more, rest more, love more, hate less.